NASCAR announces new dates for races in June, and Ryan Newman talks in depth about that terrifying Daytona 500 crash. How's it going, you guys? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope you're staying safe and taking care of yourselves wherever you are, however you may be watching this episode, but it feels good. NASCAR is back this weekend in less than 2 days. Race cars will be once again going in circles for our entertainment and amusement. I'm excited. I hope you all are as well. I'm wearing my Groovy Gang t-shirt because I'm in a very groovy mood. And speaking of t-shirts, many of you have asked me if I would start selling t-shirts at some point, updating and adding new designs. And I'm happy to say that a couple new designs have been added to my Teespring store, and I have a couple more on the way very shortly. You can go to teespring.com/stores/estep. That's E-S-T-E with 2 P's at the end. Or if you just scroll down near the comment section of this video, you'll see some of these shirts on display, including the Groovy Gang t-shirt featuring the grooviest penguin in racing, our unofficial mascot, Michael Waddletrip. Yes, you heard that right. Anyway, point is, I got some new shirts down there, and I have other exciting designs on the way, so keep an eye out on that. Many of you have asked me for t-shirts. I'm making it happen. Anyway, let's jump on into today's video because we have a lot to discuss. Yesterday was sort of like an impromptu, it was media day, the sequel. You know, there's always media day before the Daytona 500, before the season starts. Everyone comes in, dresses up, gets their photo taken, talks to all the media, talks to all the reporters across the country. Yesterday was like a slightly simplified version of that. A lot of drivers hopped in a big media Zoom call from the sounds of it and gave statements and gave interviews about this upcoming return to racing at Darlington. We'll talk about Ryan Newman in a few minutes because in his interview, he went into very strong detail about the Daytona 500 crash, his hospitalization afterwards, and then his ultimate recovery. Very interesting stuff. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But one question that, of course, most every driver was asked yesterday was about the new revised 2020 schedule. We all know about the race Sunday at Darlington, and then Tuesday, Wednesday at Darlington, and then Charlotte the week after that. But now NASCAR has added 5 more races to the 2020 schedule, starting with May 30th weekend. Here is what NASCAR announced yesterday. After Charlotte, Bristol Motor Speedway in Tennessee will be the next stop on the circuit, with the Xfinity Series and Cup Series each having a day, Saturday and Sunday. Then they'll go to Atlanta Motor Speedway, a mile and a half, for a Truck Xfinity doubleheader on June 6th, and then Sunday, June 7th will be a Cup race there. And then just a few days later, that Wednesday, Martinsville Speedway will make its Cup Series night race debut at 7 p.m. And then Homestead Miami Speedway in South Florida is going to be hopping the week after that. Trucks and Xfinity will both race on Saturday, and then Xfinity will race again Sunday afternoon with Cup Series coming up right after it. And then a week later, Talladega Superspeedway will see the return of the ARCA Menard Series June 20th, with the Xfinity Series also being run that Saturday, and Cup at Talladega will be run Sunday, June 21st. So the first few weeks of June now have a schedule to them. Now, of course, that schedule is potentially subject to change, but I'm sure NASCAR at this point, with all of their procedures they have now in place that we're going to start seeing this weekend at Darlington, I think NASCAR is pretty confident that they're going to be able to run all of those races. Now, of course, all of those races I just named as of now are to be run without race fans in attendance, which I know is disappointing to a lot of race fans, especially fans in those areas who are looking forward to going to those races this year, but I think it's very important to maintain perspective. The fact that NASCAR is getting back to competition in any form is amazing, is absolutely wonderful. Look around America right now. What other major sports leagues are even close to returning? I mean, I'm hearing the NHL might be lining something up. Hockey might be going into the playoffs sometime soon, but the NBA is still hush-hush about if they're even going to return this year. The NFL's not sure how their season's going to be affected. Baseball is still nowhere near starting to play games. The fall could be in jeopardy for college sports. College football may not even have a season this year. Let's all just take a step back and view this with a perspective here. Yes, it sucks that we can't go to the racetrack. Many people have already bought tickets, and most every track that I know of is offering refunds or offering credits that are actually added value to your tickets. So it's not like anyone's being completely hung out to dry here by any means, but I understand that many fans are disappointed. They had plans, they had weekend plans, they had trip plans, they had travel plans that now they need to cancel or aren't able to do. And I understand that's extremely disappointing for a lot of people. But I see a select amount of fans, very few, but a few fans, especially on social media, which obviously tends to bring out the worst in people, but I see a few of them just lashing out at NASCAR. How dare they even consider restarting the season if they can't have fans in the stands? Like, what's the point? Obviously, they don't watch this show because we talk about the point multiple times a week every week, but NASCAR has to run these races and has to get them televised because that's the only way these teams don't go out of business. So it's not like NASCAR can just take the L this season and not run any races. Like, oh, if there's no fans, what's the point? No, there is definitely a point. Especially, ask any of the smaller race teams, ask any Truck or Xfinity Series team, and many of the Cup Series teams. Oh yeah, there's absolutely a point to running these races this year, at least as long as they're on TV. Because that's where most of the money that makes this sport go round comes from. Fox and NBC, they spend a lot of money to broadcast these races, and that money is what trickles down to all the race teams, to NASCAR corporate, to the racetracks, etc., etc. It really comes down to getting these races on TV. So for people who act like there's no point in running these races without fans in the stands, you're missing the big picture. It's extremely important to run these races and get them on TV. But I do understand where the lashing out is coming from. I mean, most people have been locked up in their houses more or less for a couple months now in a lot of places, and I understand. I mean, I'm very much in that same boat. I want to get out. I want to go back to normal, but obviously that isn't the case. And for people acting like NASCAR is somehow being more restricted than other sports, again, I'll just go back to what I said a second ago. Major League Baseball has no timetable for their season getting up and getting started. The NBA has no timetable for their season getting started. Let's be thankful for just a moment that NASCAR at least is going to put on a show this weekend, and the weekend after that, and hopefully the weekend after that. I just think it's important to maintain that perspective because I just saw a few very ignorant people on social media, but I don't want to dwell on that because it's Twitter, and Twitter does not deserve that much attention. Looking back at that schedule that was just revealed, the few notable dates stand out. Homestead Miami Speedway, the Xfinity Series, is going to be busy. They have 2 races run that weekend, Saturday and Sunday, an Xfinity Series doubleheader. Dale Earnhardt Jr. confirmed on Twitter that he will be running the Saturday Xfinity Series race that weekend. Now, of course, with the Xfinity Series running 2 races that weekend, an extra race at Homestead Miami Speedway, that does mean that another track on their schedule is losing a date, and unfortunately that will be Iowa Speedway. Iowa Speedway put out an announcement yesterday that they will not be holding any major NASCAR races in 2020, which of course is a very disappointing revelation for sure. Of course, Iowa Speedway is owned by ISC, which is owned by NASCAR, same as Homestead Miami Speedway, so it makes sense if you're going to lose an ISC date, better go to an ISC track, and that's what Homestead Miami Speedway is. So NASCAR, from NASCAR's perspective, they're not going to take a hit on this, but for fans of Iowa, for maybe fans in the Iowa region that were hoping that later in the season they could maybe get to go to that race and attendant, yeah, that's definitely disappointing, I'm sure. Iowa Speedway is going to be okay, though. I don't see any reason why Iowa won't be right back on the schedule next season. I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just the nature of this situation. You notice all of these dates, Bristol, Talladega, Atlanta, Homestead Miami Speedway, and Martinsville, are all fairly close still to Charlotte, North Carolina. In fact, Homestead Miami Speedway is probably the furthest away. It's like a 7-hour drive, so that one will be interesting, but that's why they're pushing that one later. It's in like mid to late June instead of early June. But most of those races are still within just a few hours driving distance from Charlotte, North Carolina, where all the race teams are located, and NASCAR has made it clear from the very beginning that at least for these next few weeks, few months back, they're going to try and run most of the races in and around the Charlotte area to make things easier logistically on the race teams and perhaps give the opportunity for more one-day shows. Now, they have not revealed whether or not any of these races, like Bristol, Atlanta, any of them, are going to be one-day shows, but it's safe to assume that some of them probably will be. Another thing on that schedule that I briefly mentioned, Martinsville Speedway is going to get a night race this year, a night race for the Cup Series. Unfortunately, of course, no fans will be there to see it in person, but for fans watching at home, the millions at home watching on TV, that's going to be pretty cool to see the night race at Martinsville. It was supposed to happen this month in May with fans in attendance, but obviously that has not happened, but it's cool to see that Martinsville is going to get a midweek night race still. That'll be a sight to behold for sure. This post right here shows you the scheduled distance for each race. Some of them a little bit shorter than usual. Talladega, you see at the bottom, still 500 miles, but that is, of course, worth noting as well. The distance is not changing too much. Now, besides Iowa Speedway obviously canceling all of their NASCAR events for 2020, Michigan International Speedway, Kansas Speedway, those are the 2 that I saw, also put out statements that their races that were scheduled for May and June have been postponed. Not canceled, just postponed. Good chance those races get rescheduled for later in the year. But there it is. That is the planned schedule through June 21st. So for the next month or so, that's what the plan is. A lot of racing in a short period of time, but I'm sure most fans will be excited to see it. Now I want to move on to Media Day yesterday, specifically Ryan Newman's interview and his comments, because Ryan Newman, up until this point, had really not gone into much detail about that scary Daytona 500 crash that knocked him out of the race car for 3 weeks. Remember, Ryan Newman has been cleared to return, so he will be racing this weekend at Darlington in the 6 car. I believe they drew out qualifying numbers yesterday, like at random pretty much. It was sort of based on owner's points, but a lot of it was at random. Newman, I think, qualified or is going to start 21st, so middle of the pack, middle of the action. But Newman is back, and quite frankly, it's almost miraculous given how scary that wreck was and where the entire fan base kind of was that night after the race, after the wreck happened, how shaken the entire NASCAR world was for some number of hours, and in many cases still for several days, even after Newman was released from the hospital and walking around and acting like it was no big deal. It was still quite a ways a very jarring incident for many fans. But Ryan Newman, for the first time since then, really went into some pretty serious detail about the accident. I want to read a few tweets because I was not in the Zoom call or whatever it was with the media. I was not there and hearing it firsthand, so I'm just going to read you guys tweets from some of the real NASCAR reporters out here who were right there firsthand, and I'll read you guys some of the quotes that Newman gave them. This one from Bob Pockris. Ryan Newman is doing a media conference call. He said his treatment after the accident was him being put in a medically induced coma and a PICC line in his chest. He had no other medical procedures, he said. Reportedly, Ryan Newman was in a medically induced coma for about a day. Goodness me. Ryan Newman wasn't aware of his condition or the process until he woke up. I was medically treated to not know. I was treated to be in, I guess, a medically induced coma. He then watched the replay and had to convince himself that it happened because he doesn't remember it. Now, this is one thing that Newman had talked about before this press conference, is that he doesn't remember much of the race, and he definitely does not remember the wreck itself, which is pretty freaking crazy when you really think about it. Maybe that's why he's getting back in the car so soon. He just doesn't remember it. He's got nothing to be afraid of. He doesn't remember anything. I don't mean to laugh at him or his situation. Obviously, head injuries, very serious, and that is indeed what it sounds like happened here. Ryan Newman said some doctors diagnosed that he had a concussion, but others did not diagnose him with one, and that is why he said he had a bruised brain. Now, these next couple tweets were just crazy to read. One notable comment was when he said his helmet was crushed, but also credited the new style helmet for being something that saved him, one of many factors. He credits his new Arai, I don't know if I'm saying that right, helmet for much of what kept him safe at Daytona. It was just the second race he wore it. And then this quote from Newman, every layer of the crash had multiple miracles that allowed me to walk out with my daughters. And then, of course, there was this powerful quote that I saw floating around, I feel like a complete walking miracle, Ryan Newman said during that press conference. I said miraculous a second ago. I mean, there really is no better word to describe it. That's how everyone was talking about it, the day after it happened in February. It still boggles my mind that less than 48 hours after that crash, Ryan Newman was walking out of the hospital like it was no big deal. I mean, obviously a very serious accident, some sort of head injury it sounds like, so very serious stuff, but it could have been so much worse, and it really is a miracle. Like, there's no better word to describe it. It's a miracle that he is okay, and the fact that he's getting back in the race car this week, he's a little crazy. Ryan Newman's a little bit crazy, but that's why we love Ryan Newman. He is a tough guy, and he loves driving race cars, so credit to him, man. He's going to be back in the race car this weekend, and he's going to make a run at those playoffs this year for the second year in a row. Anyway, I thought those quotes from that Ryan Newman press conference were really powerful. The stuff about the helmet, whether the helmet itself was, how damaged it was, how directly he possibly got hit on the helmet. I mean, the helmet, that is right here. The fact that it was a brand new helmet, and that might have saved his life. So many factors, so many things had to go right for him to be okay after that crash. I mean, a lot went wrong for it to get to that point, but so much went right too. So many near misses. It was really, But I thought those quotes were extremely interesting. Of course, there's more from that press conference, but those were some of the biggest highlights I took note of. Last thing I want to briefly talk about in this episode, I've talked for a while here. I bought a new microphone the other day, so I'm putting it to the test. Not this microphone. I'm not using this microphone. I'd used this in that last video, and everyone was like, whoa, you got a new microphone, guys. This is like 2 years old. I'm using it for live streams and for podcasts, stuff like that. I'm using a different microphone here, though, to try and get the best balance I possibly can. Anyway, that's not super important, but the last thing I want to talk about before Sunday's race at Darlington is the way qualifying was determined. Because yesterday, during NASCAR Race Hub on Fox Sports 1, they revealed the starting lineup for the first race back. They literally played it like the NBA draft lottery, where they pulled out ping pong balls from a little machine and read them on the air. It was based on owners' points. I believe the top 12 drivers were all put into one pot and chosen at random. I think then like from 13th to like 30th or 25th. I don't know the exact numbers. My point is they divided it up based on owners' points. And then the top 36 starting spots were reserved for the 36 charter teams. The last 4 spots were the non-charter teams. But within certain groups, they drew them at random. So Brad Keselowski drew pole position. Alex Bowman will start alongside him on the front row. I mentioned Newman will start 21st earlier. Matt Kenseth, who's making his return to NASCAR for the first time since 2018, he will start 12th, right there in the thick of things. Remember, there will be no practice, no qualifying, no track time whatsoever until they wave the green flag and send 40 cars hurtling off into turn 1. I saw a quote from Kurt Busch, I believe, during Media Day yesterday that said he hopes everyone kind of takes it at 80% that first lap, just to make sure nothing catastrophic happens and the whole field gets KO'd. That would be a rough return to racing if that happens. Everyone take care of each other and just you know, there's a competition caution at like lap 25 or something like that. Just get to the competition caution and all's good. But it is certainly going to be interesting to see how that plays out. That's all I wanted to say. I don't know if I'll have a video up tomorrow, but if I don't, you'll definitely hear from me after Sunday's race at Darlington. I'm extremely excited. All the NASCAR media promotion, NASCAR is back. Super duper fun to see. I'm extremely hyped up. I'm probably not going to sleep very well Saturday night because I'm that amped up for this thing. I hope you guys are excited as well. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you are new. I talk about NASCAR pretty much every single day, every week, 365, all that stuff. I'm never not talking about race cars going in circles. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. We're closing in on 10,000 followers, which is absolutely awesome over there. And of course, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. We keep adding new names over here week in, week out, so I greatly appreciate the support, you guys. It means a ton to me that you guys would go above and beyond to support the channel, support the show, support what I'm trying to do over here. It really, really does mean a lot to me, especially during these uncertain times. It really helps out quite a bit. So thank you all a ton for supporting the show on Patreon. I mentioned t-shirts. Again, check those out down by the description, or you can go to teespring.com/stores/estep with 2 P's. Get yourself a Groovy Gang shirt. Get yourself an Out of the Groove logo shirt. I worked really hard on that logo, y'all. If you like black and yellow and white, go check it out. Super comfortable, but thank you all a ton for the support. Thank you all for watching this video. I'm so excited to have racing back, y'all. It's been fun the last few weeks talking about iRacing, talking about schedules and speculating, but I'm ready to talk about real cars, real racing on the track, and I like talking about who wins, who doesn't. I'm ready to talk about that stuff again, and I'm excited that that's what the show's going to turn into over the next few weeks. So I'm excited to watch. Hope you all are too, and I'll see you after Sunday's race, y'all. NASCAR is back. Tell your friends, tell the world, shout it from the rooftops. NASCAR is back. I'm really putting this microphone to the test. I hope it stabilizes that and doesn't blur me out. Okay, well, thanks for watching, guys.